Hi everybody, and thanks for joining me today. So show you where I am on the pattern. I've got quite a bit done since last time. So we're well past the pillars now into the purple flowers bit under the fountain. Yeah, really happy with the progress I'm making. We are almost at 91% now. So yeah, moving right along. I'll be done before we know it. So yeah, I would say that being done by the end of the year is definitely a viable goal at this point. So that's exciting. When I first was doing this pattern, I guesstimated I'd be done by about September, but then I got busy with some other stuff and starting this channel. That's when I started this channel about a year from a year ago, so that's taken some of my stitching time. So, but yeah, still pretty happy with the progress I've been able to make. So yeah, I don't know how much longer we'll be able to take my morning walks outside. It was cold this morning. It was a couple degrees below freezing, so yeah, I had to bundle up and then take a nice warm shower when I got home. Thaw out a bit, but yeah, I really like walking outside as preferred to using my indoor machine whenever I can get that fresh air. I also find I can kind of push myself a bit more when I'm using my walking machine at home. I can kind of I can quit whenever, right? If I'm walking outside and you know I'm 3 or 4 blocks from home, well, I can't just quit, right? I got to get home, so I can kind of push myself to walk a little further, because I kind of can't just quit right there in the middle of it. I got to get home, so yeah, I find it motivates me a bit more. I also find that when I use my machine for too long, my ankles get a little sore. I think because the motion isn't exactly like walking, so because it's a strider, and so it's not the same natural motion. So yeah, I find there's that too. But yeah, I had my toque, my earmuffs, my mittens, all that good stuff. Fortunately, it wasn't too windy today, so there was that. Definitely makes a big difference on how cold it feels with the wind chill. But fortunately, not too chilly today. Okay. Oh yeah, this is just a short piece here. Yeah, and this part has been going a little faster because, as you can see, there's not as many colors except in the little spots where the flowers are. It's let me take a look. Where am I at? Up here. Yeah, so there's been some bigger blocks of the navy and the other darker blues and the black, so that also goes faster that way. Yeah, so you can see this color's kind of scattered all around here. So let's see if I can get that to come out. Ah, perfect. Gotta be careful. It looks like it wants to form a bit of a tangle there, so I'll just untangle it a bit. There we go. before it can cause me issues. Oh, I was on a on hold for a while, and yeah, they had a piano piece playing. Now it's stuck in my head. Not sure who the composer was, but it sounded like some kind of Bach I would have learned when I was a kid, so. Yeah, I looked at the forecast and I was surprised still no snow forecasted, so anytime the snow holds off until after Halloween, I am happy. That's for sure. Yeah, I get the winter blahs, so the winter blues, so so of course I moved to a place with tons of snow, right? But actually, it's not the snow so much as it's the lack of light, I think. Because I grew up on Vancouver Island mostly, and then we moved to the lower mainland. Not much snow, but it would rain all the time. That was really depressing. Just that gray, dull sky, sometimes for weeks on end. But yeah, I don't miss that at all. I've had people say you don't have to shovel the rain, but the rain is just, I don't know. Some people love it. For me, I don't mind it for a couple of days, but when it goes on for weeks, yeah, that really brings me down. So. Yeah, the sound of the rain is nice, but I don't know. Gets to me after a bit. I like this area, nice little pops of color here. The pink. Yeah, and it sure is exciting. This edge right here is the lower edge, so no more threads hanging below that. They get finished off then. And of course, as you can see, I'm back into more of a diagonal direction here. Although some places end up a little more squared off just because of how the colors go. Pardon me. Oh my. Yeah, so I'm hoping this is the last week of my son and taking his driving course. He's doing really well. He gets marks 95 or over, so said, yeah, I'm not surprised. He certainly didn't get that from me. I did not learn to drive until I was 24. My husband taught me. So it was funny because my dad's like, oh, okay, I'll get the divorce papers ready, because he taught my mom, and so yeah, they didn't have a good time. But no, my husband's really patient, so we did good. Oh, and I'm so excited too, because so I'm 41 now, and I'm still technically a new driver because we have the graduated licensing system, and you have to take a second road test to get rid of the new driver status. Well, they're doing away with that. Now they say if you've driven for, I think it is at least 2 years afterwards with a clean driving record, you can apply for your full license without having to take a second road test. So woohoo! That is what I'm doing the next time my my license comes up for renewal. Because yeah, obviously I've been driving for quite a while now with a good clean driving record, so. Which is good because I have to pay a little bit more insurance because I'm a new driver, but I was willing to do that. Because I hate testing so much. Oh my gosh. It gets me so nervous. You know, it's like they say, you can do the simplest thing until somebody wants to watch you do it and then forget it, right? You forget how to tie your shoes, how to, You know, it showed somebody cracked an egg and they accidentally threw the shell in the pan, and the egg, you know, into the garbage. And like, right, we've all done that. And yeah, I have bad test anxiety. If it's a written test, I do great, but like an actual physical show you how to do it test, oh my gosh, I get terrified. So yeah, and I had to take my my driver's test twice. I failed the first time, although most people do. You know, I tell anyone who's depressed about that, I said, honestly, I'm not sure I even know anyone who passed it their first try. So yeah. Yeah, my husband got it because he was doing his driver's test on a standard, and he kept his hand on the shifter, and the guy's like, well, you didn't have both hands on the wheel. And he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like shift with my foot or something? And I think the guy failed him. I said, yeah, that's why you're not supposed to be a smart aleck to the instructor. He holds your fate in his hands, right? Oh. But what he expected him to do was shift gears, put your hand back on the wheel, shift gears, put your hand back on the wheel, right? Which, especially if you're shifting gears a whole bunch of times in a row, right? If you're moving from first to second to third because you're going on the highway or whatever, then who's going to do that, right? Yeah, like most people are not going to do that. So, oh, just like in Alberta, they have this weird rule that, again, nobody drives this way, but when you're turning right, they expect you to turn in next to the curb, then signal and turn in as if it was like its own lane, which it's not. And I mean, who does that? In fact, if somebody does that, I'm going to think they're pulling over to park, and then if they pull in front of me, it's going to be a surprise, right? So it was one of those, you do it that way for the test because that's technically how you're supposed to do that, but nobody does, right? And yeah, just like they said, there's at least one province in Canada, I can't remember, I think it's New Brunswick, I can't remember, or maybe Nova Scotia, but I was reading it that said you're supposed to honk before you pass. And I said, yeah, okay, but who does that, right? I think if you did that, most people would be like, what you honking at me for? I didn't do anything, you know, so. But oh, my first test, yeah, it was the parallel parking one that got me. Oh, I hate parallel parking. Oh, absolutely hate it. And the test guy, man, he was a jerk. Like at the end, he's telling me, okay, this is what you did and this is why you failed. And he tells me like 6 times that I hit the curb parallel parking. Like, dude, I get it. I heard you. I'm not deaf. You know, I acknowledged it every time he said it. He's like, yeah, and you hit the curb. I'm like, okay, yes. And he's like, yeah, and you hit the curb. I'm like, yes. You know, and also you hit the curb. I'm like, yes, I know. And I was trying not to be a smart aleck, right? But I felt like saying, like, dude, I heard you the first 4 times. Do you think I'm deaf? Like, I acknowledged you. You know, oh my gosh. But yeah, like I just said, that is one thing that just gets under my skin so bad is, you know, if you reprimand me, fine, and I acknowledge you, fine, move on, right? It's when they keep digging in at it that it's just, I start to get livid. Oh, like I remember when I was in college, and I brought my own lunch, and I brought a salad, and I forgot to bring some salad dressing from home. So I went into the cafeteria line and said, you know, can I just buy some dressing for my salad? I don't have to buy a whole salad, just the dressing. And the server there's like, oh, that's fine. You can just take some. I'm like, oh, are you sure? She says, yeah, just go ahead. I said, oh, okay, thanks. So I get my scoop of ranch and I sit down, and this other lady comes on over and she's like, you can't do that. You have to pay for it. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, I asked the clerk there and she said it was fine. And she's like, no, you have to pay. I said, oh, absolutely. I will pay for it. I grab my wallet. I start walking up to her. She's like, yeah, because you can't just take it. I'm like, I understand. I'm coming behind you to pay it. I'm not arguing with you, right? She's like, yeah. And then she goes over and she tells the clerk off in front of me, you can't give her that. She has to pay for it. So clearly she knows that the clerk is the one who told me that I couldn't just take, that the clerk is the one who screwed up and told me I could just take some. And then turns to me and again says, yes, because I said, okay, you've told me like 3-4 times now, and I acknowledged you every time. What more do you want from me? And she kind of looks at me and it was like, you know, like, oh man, I was so mad. Like, what do you expect me to do? Bend down and kiss your feet? Beg for forgiveness while prostrating myself in front of you? Like, I apologized. I said, absolutely, I'll pay for it. I'm not arguing with, That is just like a huge trigger for me. Like if I have to give you a reason to say I heard you the first 10 times, shut up. Oh, don't, you know? Oh, I don't get that. So I've been like always careful that when I make a point and someone acknowledges it, I stop and move on. Because I mean, what is the point of humiliating somebody with it? There's no need for that. Unless it's like, you know, your own need to feel like some kind of a big man or something, you know? Oh, I don't get it. I mean, it's no wonder people don't ever want to admit they're wrong if somebody's going to rub their face in it when they do, right? Ugh. Yeah, treat others how you want to be treated, right? It's pretty basic, but oh man. Yeah, and I was careful not to, you know, get really mad or yell or anything, because like that could get me in trouble, because it'll say, you know, verbal abuse can't be tolerated, even though I would say berating somebody when they've already apologized and acknowledged you is pretty abusive, but you know, I guess they won't count it unless they're raising their voice, right? And I mean, I tried to be patient too, because I worked in service. It sucks. You know, I worked my first permanent job that wasn't like, because I did temp work during Christmas at Zeller's one year, where we would go around sort of tidying up the store displays and stuff like that. And but that my first permanent job was I was working in the mall food court with a Chinese restaurant. And man, yeah, people are, whew, they're not nice to retail people. You can tell who's really a nice person and who isn't by how they treat the service people. And yeah, it's it's a brutal job. Plus you're on your feet all day, right? And oh, yeah, they definitely don't pay people enough for that. So the people who denigrate those kind of jobs, I think, would have a hard time doing them. You know, they're tough work. They really should be valued more. I've often said if everybody had to work a minimum wage job for 6 months, I think the world would be a better place. If you had to be put into that situation where people treat you like you're not even human. Oh, like it was wild where somebody said, lady came into their store when they weren't officially open yet. And they said, oh, you know, we're not open yet, sorry. And she says, well, the door's unlocked. And the manager says, well, when there's a certain number of people in here, we have to keep the door unlocked because of the fire code. And the lady looks around and she says, there's no one in here. I was like, there's like 6 employees in there. But just goes to show how many people don't see workers as human, right? Oh my gosh. So yeah, like I said, I always try to be extra nice now because I know how much that job sucks. And I remember how people who were really kind, they still stick with me, you know, over 20 years later. Yeah. So, yeah, like I had one time I was mailing something to family members and I messed up the address. I transposed 2 of the numbers, so it got returned. And I ended up having to pay a return fee and then to ship it back out, which was really annoying. But I mean, it was my fault, right? You know, I should have paid more attention when I was filling it in. Then the lady's like, oh, I can't believe they didn't, you know, walk it a few more steps to drop it. I said, well, you know, and she says, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, no, why are you sorry? It's my fault, you know? And she looked so shocked. She was really expecting me to yell at her, you know? But it's like, well, what good would yelling at her do? And it's, again, I'm the one who blew it. So, you know, maybe it might make someone feel better to yell at them, but I mean, it's not going to fix anything, and it isn't even their fault. So yeah. And my husband said similar, like when he was at, he got snowed in, and so all the flights were canceled. And he said, oh, the people, you know, in the line ahead of him to get vouchers for hotels and all that, they were so awful to the clerk. And then she talks to them, and he's, you know, nice to her, and she says, oh, you know, thanks for being so patient. And he said, well, you know, you can't control the weather. You know, why should I get mad at you? And she looked really shocked because, yeah, she'd been putting up with nothing but abuse all day. But, yeah, like he said, you know, you can't control the weather and you can't control if the hotels are full. You know, that's not on you. So, yeah. Yeah, that was wild because he was on some kind of engineering conference. And they decided to hold it in Halifax in like the middle of February. So this is Canada, right? Everything is covered in snow, and your chances of your flights getting delayed or canceled because of snow are much higher. And I said, you know, who decided that it was a good idea to hold it in February? You know, the month that we often get the most snow. Like, why not hold it in like May or something? You know, it's not like it was an ice fishing convention or something where it needs to be cold. So, but yeah, he said, so they got to spend almost an extra week there waiting for the weather to clear. And, yeah. And he said, luckily it's, you know, the company's got to pay for it. So it wasn't costing him more. And, he said they would go over to the movie theater, and there was like, they would have the whole theater, just him and like 2 other guys who he was at the same conference with. Because, yeah, nobody was going out in that weather. But I guess the workers still had to be there, so. Oh. Yeah, it was funny because our son was really little at that time. I think he was about 2. And so we'd written it on the calendar when Dad will be home. And then every night he could cross a day off. So that was, you know, 1 day closer to Dad being home. But then, of course, Dad was not able to come home on time. And then he was all upset. He didn't want to talk with him on Skype because he was mad Dad didn't come home. And it's like, well, Dad couldn't help it. He'd like to be home, you know, but 2 years old, they don't get it, right? Yeah. They think Dad is more powerful than he actually is, and that if he wanted to be home, he would be, right? So, oh. Because, yeah, I had that with one of my friends was saying, how do they handle it with younger kids when a parent has to be away? And to them, they can't understand what a week means. And I said, that's what we did. But I said, the only problem was if he gets delayed, then that can cause issues that later they feel lied to, right? Yeah, we generally don't travel in the winter if we can help it around here. We did drive once in the dead of January, but we said, yeah, never doing that again. Oh, it was actually pretty scary. We were up on the Coquihalla, and we ended up between these 2 semis, and as we were driving through, one of them started sliding towards the other like this. Oh my gosh, my heart was in my throat that we're going to get crushed. And yeah, thankfully, my husband knows how to drive, so he didn't just like step on it and spin the tires and ended up stuck there. So, but yeah, man, that was a scary moment. And then on the way back, a big car carrier jackknifed and broke, and cars went all across the highway. So that was closed down for hours while they cleaned that up. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. It was just property damage. So could have been a lot worse, obviously. But yeah, that's the Coquihalla Highway. They actually feature it a lot on, there's a Discovery show, Highway Through Hell, that my husband and son love to watch. And yeah, it's about, you know, big accidents and things that they have to clean up and figure out how to do it. And it's a lot of logistical work when it's, of course, those big, you know, semi trucks. It's not a simple matter of, okay, we'll just bring in a tow truck and pull it out, right? It's there can be a lot of logistics going on there. And there's another one they call Heavy Rescue 411. I'm not sure if that one is still airing new episodes or not. Highway Through Hell, they're still making new ones. So yeah. In fact, they said, you know, since the pandemic, there's been even more shipping because more and more online shopping, right? So, yeah, we're really spoiled by that now. Yeah, it's actually interesting too. They have avalanche cannons on the way there too. You can see them. And they ran on the old World War II shells until they ran out. Now they had to make new ones for it. Because that's how that started, was they had a huge stockpile of these and they didn't know what to do after the war, right? Didn't need them anymore. And so someone got the idea of, well, you can use them to set off the avalanche so that it's safer, right? If they do it in a controlled manner rather than just waiting for it to go on its own while people are driving through. So yeah, it's wild because like even in the high summer, you can still have snow up there. It's up high enough. It's pretty cold. Oh, it was funny. My son had this little toy duck that he got out of the one of those little vending machines. I guess it's not a quarter anymore. It's like a loonie or a toonie now. But yeah, that's what in Canada the $1 coin's called a loonie because it has a loon bird on it. And then there's a $2 coin we call the toonie. And a while somebody said we should call it the doubloon, but I mean that sounds too, too much like old-timey pirates. So yeah, it's the toonie. And anyway, so he had this little duck that when you squeezed it, its eyes popped out. We called it the Auga duck, right? Because it looked like the old cartoons. And anyway, it was really funny because when we went over the Coquihalla Highway, the pressure rose because we were up so high that one of its eyes was popping out the whole way. And if you tried to push it in, the other eye would pop out. So it was quite funny. And then when we got back down to sea level, which is where my in-laws live, then that duck was like, he looked deflated because it was, I guess that where it had been filled up was like sort of mid-range pressure. And so, yeah, the extreme of going up at the highest point, the eyes were popping out, and then at sea level, it was like all soft and collapsed in on itself. So, yeah, I don't know where that little toy went, but it was fun. Yeah, we got it at some little roadside diner while we were, waiting for our lunch. Kiddo was bored and wanted to walk around, and then, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that place survived the pandemic or not. Because, yeah, there were a lot of places that we would often stop at during our trip that no longer, like there was a Husky that they still have the gas, but the restaurant shut down. Because I guess they couldn't survive it, and even though things are opening back up, they didn't bother opening it again. I guess they don't make enough money off it to bother doing that. .88. Yeah. Maybe not on camera, but I should hit 91 today, so woohoo. Yeah, there was a lot of construction on the way too, because the Sumas mountain area had a huge flood the winter before and washed away lots of parts of the highway. So yeah, they had to build a whole new bridge because yeah, another one got taken out by mudslide. And yeah, quite a few places. So yeah, I didn't know. They said that whole Sumas area, the Sumas Valley, was actually a huge giant lake, and it was drained. And there's always pumping stations going on to keep it dry. But yeah, so much rain fell that they could not keep up. So yeah, it was a big disaster. Things flooded, and there were people had to go through and rescue a bunch of the farm animals. There were some pictures of them in boats with cows holding harnesses, dragging them out. Poor things, they must have been terrified. Yeah. Yes, and my in-laws were really lucky. They were on enough of a hill that they did not flood. So, but yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people were not quite so fortunate. Yeah, we've been really lucky in our house too. There's We don't get flooding as much here, but every now and then we'll get a big rainstorm, and you know, it's mostly flat here. There's nowhere for it to go, but our house is on just enough of a little bit of a hill that it thankfully, you know, fingers crossed, has never flooded for us. We had friends whose basements flooded, but we've been really fortunate that that's not happened to us. So yeah. Yeah, because we had our old house, before we had this one, our first house, somebody didn't, we had a fireplace and a chimney, and whoever did it didn't seal the chimney cap onto the roof properly. So we had a huge rainstorm and water came down in, and it actually got inside the weather stripping in the wall. And then, yeah, I was downstairs and I felt this drip on my head, and I was like, okay, that's not supposed to happen. And yeah, we had to make an insurance claim on it, and they had to pull out the drywall. They had to cut open the weather barrier, the vapor barrier, and run a dehydrator machine for like a week to dry that all out. Yeah, it was wild. And then, yeah, we had to get that all fixed up, so that was not fun. Yeah, and unfortunately, we'd wanted to put our house on the market, but then with all that damage, you know, we couldn't. We had to get it fixed first. So, and then by the time we did, house prices jumped a lot. So we ended up spending more than we expected to buy a house to where my husband's new work was, but oh well. Sometimes these things happen, right? Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised that that had never leaked before, but I guess they'd never had a rainstorm like that before. And yeah, like they said, they put the roof cap on it, but they didn't properly seal it. So when the rain started coming in sideways, it went right into whatever gap was there. Yeah, we hardly ever use that fireplace either. So, but it was kind of nice to have, especially out, you know, when you live in a place where it gets to -40 or even colder in the winter. It is nice to have a bit of a backup just in case your power goes out, right? We have a generator now since we don't have a fireplace in this house. My husband says he might want to get a wood stove, but then the problem is your home insurance does increase if you do that. So, oh, where am I? Ah, right there. Yeah, because of course there is a greater fire hazard when you have that. So yeah, we haven't done that yet. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah, I did too. I'm actually grabbed this thread. Yep. Silly me. Well, that's okay. I will just carry on because, yeah, I grabbed the wrong one. They're so close in shade sometimes that it is really hard to tell which one I grabbed. Now that's the one, yes. I should have been paying closer attention. Ah, well. It all worked out in the end anyway, so we are good. Okay, and then I'm gonna have to start a new one for that. All these square symbols. Okay, 939. Yeah, I've been using up lots of this color. Less than 3,000 now. But yeah, there was a lot when I started this project. I think there was like 15,000 of this color. So yeah, we are getting there. Okay, so I'm going to do some of that block with this thread here once I get to it. And leave some for the next diagonal. So sometimes bigger section of color gets split up just because of the way they fall across the diagonals. That can happen. There we are. So I can do up to that one there without extending past and closing anything in. And then I'll do that little section there with a different thread as I come down the next diagonal. Oh, I'm at 90.90%. 9090. Done. Okay. So yeah, when I can do a whole bunch without switching threads, zooms right on by. I'm not sure where I put my makeup brush. Usually keep a nice big fluffy brush here to just brush stuff away, but I'm not sure where it went. It's usually right next to me. I'll have to search it down later when I'm done filming. Not a big deal, but I kind of like using it instead of picking it with my nails because I sometimes could accidentally grab a fiber from the stitching and pull it loose and get it all fuzzy, which I don't want to do, obviously. So yeah, brush is more gentle. See, these threads are getting kind of twisted. Just kind of untwist them a bit before I stitch with them. Helps to make them lie a little flatter and neater. I give a little bit of slack in my grid lines so they can get a little loose when I get to the edges, so I just have to be careful. Yeah, I had one time the line had moved sort of one up, and I was thinking, why is everything running out of space too early? And that's because, oh, it had moved so it looked like that was only 9 stitches in height when it was supposed to be taller than that. Okay, let's see if we can do this all in one go. That way my thread can end up back where I started to do more stitches right there, instead of it being shifted all the way down here and then either having a long carry or having to end it off. So yes, that is why I chose to do it that way. Oh my. There. Fingers didn't want to cooperate there. Well, for all that trying to make the thread end up where I started, it's probably going to run out anyway, so whatever. That happens sometimes. Yeah, looks like this will be just the right length to finish off these last 4 that need to be crossed. And then it is done. Yep. Oh, that's funny. Or that's why I like to check before I pull a thread up, because I've done where I've sort of planned this whole big meandering path, and then I pull the thread the parked thread to use it and realize, oh, it's long enough for like 2 stitches. It's like, well, that was a waste of planning time. Ugh. Try not to spend too much time planning and just stitch. Okay, that one I can unthread because I'm not going to get to it until the next diagonal. So I have to fill in sort of all this here, and that's sort of in the next one. So yeah, I unthreaded that one, and we'll just deal with it then. Oh, pardon me. Okay, I am probably going to end up with more than one thread of this color here because it's kind of scattered all over the place. As you can see, the one I have parked is not very long to begin with, so I would need to add a new thread anyways. Okay, so I'm going to do that one and that one. Park it there. Then I'm going to do this color here. Again, this one's going to end up with, yeah, more than one thread probably going all over the place. Okay. Okay. Oops. I was trying to move and instead I was on search mode. That won't work too well. Okay. Just double checking I was in the right spot. Oops. I was going to leave that threaded, but so much for that plan. Okay. All right, park that there. Ah, I like when they just follow that edge right there. Makes it much easier. to not close stuff in. Okay, so let's go do all of this color, and then I can tie this one off. Trying not to stitch over my grid line there. Not that it matters if I do, it just makes it a little easier to remove if it's not covered. And when I finish this project, I will make a video showing you guys how easy it is to remove this gridding when you do it with the Sulky Sliver thread. Yeah, it slides out nice. I have done it with sewing thread, but that one can get snagged and it can be a real pain. You can still remove it, but I found there were a few times I had to pull it through to the back side and like pull the fibers apart to really get it to release, and even then it was like picking away at it with a needle. And oh, I think there were a couple in one of my pieces that there was still a little bit of green thread on the back side. I made sure it could not be visible from the front, so it wasn't a problem, but yeah, it would not, no matter how much I picked at the fibers, they were in there good. So I can tell you that stitching over ends to secure them, it works. Yeah, because some people will do that. They'll leave a long waist thread and stitch over it, and I can tell you that, yeah, that's really secure, because try to remove it and it was hanging on for in a death grip or something there. So okay. Oh. All right, I'm gonna do this one here. One less thread here. Yeah, that can be finished off. So I will pin stitch until I'm about, the closest I'll go is 5 stitches from the edge. Otherwise I worry the resulting tail that I leave might extend past the edge of the design, and I don't want that. So when I get to the very edge, I draw all the threads in towards the center, even if it is a tiny bit bulkier than doing the pin stitch. And I also find it's a little less secure. The pin stitch is really secure. So, yeah, sometimes I will do that. I'll do that on the edges because I care more about them not showing through on the wrong side, or on the right side, I should say. I want to keep all the ends tucked to the back. So. To give it a nice straight edge for the edge of the design there. Nice clean edge. Okay. That is not going to stay threaded, I know that right now, so I'm not even going to bother trying to keep that on there. Let's see if there's a needle on this one. There is. This is a short one. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, that is all I'm gonna get out of that bit. And again, always making sure where I'm pin stitching is going to be covered by similar or darker colors so that I don't show through. So I would never pin stitch, say, some navy if there was going to be like some white stitched over it, because I would worry that it would show up, and I don't want that, obviously. Or sometimes even if the thread is longer, I won't bother leaving it threaded if I know it's going to be a long time before I get to that thread again, because too many needles on the threads and it starts to tangle. So yeah, there was someone who was saying they stitch like me, but they use only one needle, so they're rethreading a lot. It's like, oh wow, you're dedicated. Yeah, I like to use multiple needles because that would drive me nuts to rethread that many times. Okay. All right, so once I mark those two as done, we will be at nice even 180. So I think that is a good place to stop there. So as usual, I thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you here again another time. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.